1528. On the shores of a very old world that European explorers had come to call new, it happened. It happened near a bay that would one day be called Tampa. Though the name for the bay used by the people who lived here then is lost to history. They were drawn by this meeting of land and water, its provision of food and means of transport, benefits that had attracted native people for thousands of years. They left no written records, only traces of their lives. Family groups that banded together into villages, and villages that allied at times for political or spiritual reasons, or for defense. They hunted, fished, and cultivated plants for food, interacting through a network of trade along the footpaths and riverways that spanned much of North America. Thus traveled goods, ideas, and news, including items salvaged from Spanish shipwrecks and unsettling stories. These waters had begun to bring something new. Spanish expeditions, some in search of captives, others in search of land and gold. Their sails were filled by the winds of change, then sweeping the Atlantic world. For Europe, it was an age of discovery. For Spain, it was a chance to expand a burgeoning empire. For the Church, it was the hand of God spreading the reach of Christianity. For the conquistadors, it was an opportunity to serve God and King, and to acquire wealth. For over 30 years, Spanish explorers had ruled the islands they called the Antilles, then pushing westward to a land they conquered and claimed as New Spain, and north to what they believed was an island, La Florida, named by Ponce de Leon in 1513. Here, 15 years later, the masts of 4 ships broke the blue horizon, and soon the winds of change blew ashore near Tampa Bay. It was an expedition organized in Spain and led by Panfilo de Narvaez, a seasoned opportunist who would help conquer Jamaica, Cuba, and Hispaniola. His crew spanned a spectrum of people, some enslaved, but most free. Men and some women, Christians, converted Jews and Muslims, people who could be lured by the promise of wealth, the same prospect Narvaez used to entice investors and to win a commission from the Spanish king to conquer and rule La Florida. Like other Spanish explorers, they were entrepreneurs of the high seas, sanctioned by their government to claim lands and treasure, and to pay taxes on their wealth to the Spanish crown. Though Narvaez had departed Spain with 6 ships and some 600 crewmen, a series of calamities had reduced the fleet by 2 ships and the crew by nearly half. Now at sea for 2 months, dangerously low on food, horses dying in their slings below decks, they had chosen to look for the opening to a large harbor known to extend several leagues inland when they sighted an opening in the beach. Beyond it, a shallow bay. It is April 12th, 1528. By chance, the Narvaez expedition's early encounters with the native people happened here. A 20-day collision of cultures that foreshadowed centuries to come. Narvaez sends Alonza Enriquez, expedition controller, to lead a landing party. The party stops on a small deserted island in Boca Ciega Bay, within hailing distance of a shoreline village. The Indians offer fish and venison in trade with Enriquez for items like beads, brass, cloth, and bells. Gestures and goods seem to bridge the barrier of language. But the natives have no gold. When the party returns to the ship, Narvaez is undaunted. Gold is never on the coast, but inland. Gold will come in good time. Night falls. The explorers back in their ships. The Indians retreating from their village, disappearing into the darkness. Another day passes as Narvaez considers his options, then decides he will launch a land exploration from here.
On behalf of the Catholic Caesarian Majesty of Don Carlos, King of the Romans, and Emperor Ever Augustus, I, Panfilo de Narvaez, his servant, messenger, and captain, notify and cause you to know.
Narvaez conducts the standard legal ritual for claiming new lands, then moves to requerimiento, the requirements of his new subjects.
You shall not be required to become Christians, except when, informed of the truth, you desire to be converted to our holy Catholic faith. If you do not do this, I will enter with force, making war upon you.
Though the words might bring as meaningless sounds to the natives, who likely observe from a distance the actions, planting a flag, unloading the ships, must have raised a clear question. What do these visitors intend? When night comes, the faces glowing by the flickering light of campfires in the village are those of the conquistadors. They have occupied the abandoned village. As the sun rises, about 20 natives approach and make clear they want the Spaniards out of their village. It is a moment of choice for the natives. They might defend their homes, calling for a violent attack, or take their leave. For reasons unknown, they do not attack. The next day, Narvaez begins his exploration, hungry for gold. Crossing the Pinellas Peninsula, the exploring party finds old Tampa Bay. Narvaez returns to his base camp the next day. He sends a brigantine by sea to find the entrance to the bay and meet his land party. Narvaez needs a safe harbor for his ships. The brigantine never shows. Narvaez assumes the pilot took his secondary sailing orders. Should he not find the entrance, sail on to Havana and return with more supplies. The explorers also see no sign of native people, but they must. Food supplies are dwindling. The expedition is dependent on local provisions. Then comes an encounter. It is brief and violent, ending with 2 or 3 Indians in chains and neck irons. They will be forced guides, but the first goal is no longer gold. Now, a village at the back of the bay, larger than the shoreline village. There is corn, but it is meager and not enough to sustain the expedition. They are surprised to find a large collection of crates originally used by Spanish merchants to pack trade goods. Inside each crate is a corpse, carefully wrapped in a painted deerskin. They have entered a charnel house. For the Indians, it is a place of deep spiritual meaning, a place to venerate the dead. But to Friar Juan's spies, the mortuary ritual can only be interpreted as pagan idolatry. Narvaez orders the crates put to the torch. Over the next several days, there are more episodes of violence. In one encounter, Spanish attack dogs kill the mother of Hirihigua, the headman. Narvaez orders his men to slice off Hirihigua's nose and hand it back to him. An act of terror with a message. Submission to the new governor of La Florida is required. The natives eventually strike back, also taking prisoners. For Narvaez, such clashes are the cost of doing business. He is intent on finding gold and interrogates his so-called new subjects. He cannot know if they answer in submission or subversion. If it is gold and corn he wants, gold and corn he may have, but far from here, perhaps along the Appalachian, far to the north. Narvaez and his men return to Boca Ciega Bay. His army must have food to make the long journey north. And he now believes, in error, that the opening to the large bay must be north. Overruling arguments from Cabeza de Vaca, the expedition's treasurer, Narvaez makes a fateful decision. On May 1st, 1528, almost 3 weeks after their arrival, the ships slip back through John's Pass, but Narvaez and a party of some 300 begin to march. All headings north. They expect to reconnect with the sailors and women when they all find the entrance to the harbor. Narvaez's ships will find neither the harbor nor the land party, nor enough food. Narvaez will perish. Nothing can change what happened here in 1528. This effort to establish permanent Spanish presence failed. Or the effort to resist it succeeded. Such tensions would endure as the winds of change grew stronger. Disease, destruction, and displacement ravaged the natives. By 1700, a way of life that had developed over the course of 4,000 years was gone. Here, each new wave of arrivals left a mark, subtle or grand, and each wave continues to shape and reshape life along these shores.